our last page, let's just talk about acids. For now, we're going to call an acid an ionic compound with H plus as its cation. Okay. Hydrogen, remember we said hydrogen is a lot different from everything else on the periodic table. H forms compounds that are sort of like ionic compounds, but they're also sort of molecular too. So it forms ionic in that H plus is an actual ion. Okay? But if we look at this formula, H2SO4, that's all nonmetals. And if it were just in its pure form, that would be just a molecule. But what happens is that when we dissolve any of these in water, they split up into their ions, and it releases H plus ions, which makes things behave as acids. Okay? So to name these, we're going to write out what ions it's made up of. This would be made up of H plus and sulfate. And the reason it's H2SO4 is because sulfate has a 2 minus charge. We need 2 of these H pluses. Okay? So our little reference down here tells us if the anion ends in 8, the name of the acid is an ic acid. So the name H2SO4 is called sulfuric acid. Okay. That is sulfate. So again, here is H plus, here is acetate. So I'm going to take ACET, replace it with ic acid. It's called acetic acid. You used acetic acid in your gas lab to produce hydrogen. Acetic acid is also in vinegar. Vinegar is 5% acetic acid. Sort of like bleach is 5% sodium hypochlorite, right? H plus, what is ClO4 minus called? That is perchlorate. So again, perchlorate becomes ic acid, so perchloric acid, okay? So if you can identify an 8 ion inside of your acid, and again, acids have H plus, right? Notice from their formula, all of these start with H. So if you've got a substance, if it starts with H, stop. Okay? It's an acid. It gets named as an acid. If it is not an 8, however, like H plus and SO3, SO4 with sulfate, SO3 with 1 fewer oxygen is sulfite. And according to our reference here, ites are an us acid. So instead of sulfuric acid, it is sulfurous. Okay. And nitrite, nitrous acid. Okay. Then what we're left with are the ones like this. Cl minus is chloride, IDE. And if our anion ends in ide, the name of the acid starts with hydro. It is hydro something ic acid. So chlor, hydrochloric. A lot of students get fairly confused by that. The hydro does not just mean it starts with an H, because all acids start with an H, right? The hydro means that its anion ended in ide. So HBr would be hydrobromic. acid. HI would be hydroiodic. Okay, so these ones are binary acids because it's just H and X, whatever the other element is. Okay. Down here, though, HCN, H plus, CN minus is cyanide. So it actually gets named the same way that those binary acids did with hydro. It's hydrocyanic. Okay. So that's just going to take a little bit of practicing. I don't think you'll have too much difficulty with that. But again, that's just figuring out if your anion is an ate, or ide ending. Practice with that a little bit. We'll have a little more practice with that in class in our activity, and you'll have a lot more practice with that in the chapters coming up as we're writing and balancing chemical equations and predicting products and so on. So that's it.